Okay.
All righty.
Okay. Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome
Happy
to
Sunday.
Ann David Limited Presents. My name is David.
And I'm Lauren Ann, and we are Ann David Limited, and we are a financial literacy company that focuses on educating the masses on saving, investing, how to pay off debt, and how to just build overall wealth. And in that token, we have a very, very special guest today. In fact, I consider them unicorns because you just don't hear about couples like this, especially Bahamians and Black. So let me read their bio and then we can get started. Darian, 29, Zania, 27, are a young married couple from the Bahamas. They moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, where they lived and worked for 5 years. Zania was a senior accountant at a medical manufacturing company, and Darian a chef at a seafood restaurant. 2 years ago, they decided that they wanted to become full time travelers. They set in motion the necessary changes needed to make their desires a reality. Having worked in both the Bahamas and Canada, it was evident that there was more to life than what society had led on. Last year, during a pandemic, I might add, they left their jobs to travel the world full time and haven't looked back since. Representation matters, and through their platforms on YouTube, Nomadic Islanders, and Instagram, The Nomadic Islanders, they were able to show that Black people can attain this lifestyle and do it on a budget. It is their aim to share their journey and highlight resources you can use to make travel attainable. So, without further ado, welcome all of our inspirations, Darian and Dan.
Hello, everyone.
You know what? This is the first thing I noticed. You guys are matching with the green, which I love. And it's funny because Lauren and I are wearing red and yellow. It just feels Christmassy right now. But thank you so much for coming on the show. We're so happy that you took some time out of your day. And I know that there's an extreme time difference between us because I know some people would have asked, well, how come you're doing it at 11 a.m.? Normally you do it at 4 p.m. And so we had to let them know that, listen, our guest is on a different time zone. It's 7 hours ahead. And with that said, where are you guys now and what city are you in?
We're in Bucharest, Romania.
Okay.
Nice. And where did you just come from, prior to being in Romania?
We had a little short layover in Fort Lauderdale, but before that, we were in Tulum, Mexico.
Okay.
I wouldn't say short because it was like
A month and some
it
change.
ended up being like a month,
Yeah.
but we didn't plan for it to be that long. But before that, it was too long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mexico.
Okay.
Okay. And if you don't mind me asking, where else have you been? And where did you start your journey? And what took you to Tulum and then now, of course, Romania?
So I can answer this one. So after we left Canada, we were supposed to leave Canada in September, but we ended up leaving in June instead. We stayed home in Nassau for a month. Most of it we had to quarantine, and then the other half of it, it was it hurricane or tropical storm?
It was a little hurricane, which was just
it's like
wind
a
and
tropical
rain.
storm, and then it was like lockdown. So we weren't able to do anything home. And then we went to Tulum. We were there for 3 months. And then we went to Turkey for 3 months. We went to Serbia for 10 days. And then things were starting to close in the countries in this area. So we went back to Tulum because we know Tulum's not going to close. So we went back to Tulum until things get a little steady. And then we spent a month in Florida. And now we're here. We've been here for about a month and some now. But we plan to leave at the end of the month.
Okay. And then do you know where you guys are going next, or have you yet to decide?
We're still trying to decide, but it'll probably be to Bulgaria because Bulgaria is right under Romania, and we should be able to take a train or a bus there, and then probably explore the countries in the area. Or if they start to close down again because of the Delta variant, we may go back to Tulum, not Tulum, but go to Mexico and explore Mexico until travel is stable again. So it sounds like it's like Mexico is a home base when travel is not stable, and then we try again,
That's fine. Listen.
Yeah, Tulum, it sounds pretty nice.
Yeah.
But so we just want to transition now into just getting a better understanding of how you transition from a 9 to 5 to now full-time travel, which
Explain it.
I know a lot of people would love to do. And so talk to us about that transition, what triggered that transition?
Well, we always love to travel,
Yeah.
but having full-time jobs, it's difficult because I don't normally have that much time off. And then Zanya working in the office, she wouldn't have that much time off either. But when we went to Italy in 2019, that's when we realized that this kind of lifestyle is definitely attainable for us. So Canada, we started to move into a small apartment, minimize our expenses. I canceled any subscriptions that I may have had, iTunes, Xbox. We didn't eat out as much. So just minimizing on the things that aren't totally necessary or things that you can do without. So with moving into a smaller apartment, we were able to save, with the difference in rent and bills, we were able to save over 900 just from that alone. So with eating out less, what else did we do?
Oh, to clarify, we're saying a small apartment, but it was actually like a room rental. So when we came back from Italy, we decided we weren't going to renew our lease, and our lease would be up in December. So we started looking at like room rentals, but we had a friend who had an extra room that she didn't need. So she said, like, instead of renting it from a stranger, you could just rent it from me. So that way we were able to save a lot of money and pay off credit card debt, because that was the only debt we had, which was credit card debt. We paid that off. And we actually filmed a budget video in March that showed like how we broke it out. So we put the money we were getting, and this was right at the beginning of lockdown too. So we put the money we were getting, and then we put what we were putting to debt and like what we were spending on our expenses for that particular month. So that was more like a realistic budget for once we downsized and got rid of our apartment, which was the hardest part.
And to bring it into context, we lived in downtown Halifax, where we were paying $1,300 a month for rent, and then extra for utilities. So we went from that to $600 a month, everything included.
Yeah, and utilities are pretty high. So like light bill would probably be like $250 every 2 months, and then internet was probably like $100.
Then our cell phone
bills, I think Darian was like 90 and mine was like 60. So it add up. It add up pretty quickly.
Definitely adds up.
Now listen, that bill loan sound, you said $250 for 2 months. Now you know in Nassau.
I know. I know.
For 1 month now. But needless to say,
yeah.
Comparative to the typical electrical bills in Canada.
Yeah, it was pretty high, because I think people would spend like $60 every 2 months, $50, but it just depends on the area, depends on the person who's in the apartment before you. They go by that, because the apartment we had prior, the person before us, he kept the heat on all year. So when we got in there, it was like $400 we were paying on electricity.
Wow. Okay, so you established that to get to your goal, you cut expenses in terms of your rent, eating, I'm sure entertainment. You kind of either cut down on some stuff and either cut some stuff out completely. So in the wealth equation, you can decrease your expenses, but you can also increase your income. So during this time, did you increase your income as well, or you simply focused on decreasing expenses to get to your goal?
We tried to increase income before we decided to give up our apartment. So I opened up a business in Canada selling like specialty gift boxes, but it wasn't successful. So after I tried that, and then I started doing graphic design, but it still wasn't bringing in enough, because I didn't have enough time after like with doing that and juggling a full-time stressful job in a stressful industry. Put as much time as I wanted a separate job. So we said, okay, since we can't really bring in as much money as we would need to get the ball rolling as quickly as we want to, we'll just find a way to downsize and
Mhm.
minimize our expenses.
And I started my own private chef business, but I only had one recurring client, and that was every January. So it wasn't really
Yeah.
feasible.
It was rough in Canada. Like,
Yeah.
first of all, we're not Canadians for once. So it's hard to get people to like spend money with your business if they're not like pretty familiar with you. So
Mhm.
we invested in marketing, we did some giveaways, but still like it's kind of hard to get them to, like be trusted
Okay.
enough to
Mhm.
support your business.
So how long did it take? I mean, from the time that you made this decision to go full-time travel to the point where you jumped on the plane to go to your first
Mhm.
destination, how long did it take to get to that point?
I'd say about 6 or so.
Yeah, it was quick.
So what we did was I paid the rent and the phone bills, and then with Zanya's pay, she paid off our debt, and then with the remainder, she started to build up our savings.
Mhm.
So doing it that way, it was a bit easier to tackle.
I think it took us 2 to 2.5 months to pay off our debt
Mhm.
using that strategy. And then afterwards, everything else just went to savings. However, because I was still working online when I was in Tulum, I was able to still make my full income up until October, which was good because our expenses were lower. So I was still able to save while we were in Tulum. And it wasn't until we went to Turkey when that was when we didn't have any income coming in from like outside jobs.
But we still had savings, of course.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So even when you started your remote travel, you guys decided to, well, Zanya, you decided to, this is your accounting job, you simply did it remotely. You're something else that you did remotely while in Tulum.
Oh no, just my regular 9 to 5. It was 8 to 4, but 9 to 5 accounting job. I continued that in Tulum until October. I stick with it until I couldn't do it no more. It was rough. It was rough, but like I stick with it until I literally just couldn't do it anymore. So that lasted until October, which was around the time because when I asked them to go, like we were always remote, but when I asked them to work from different countries, we signed like kind of like a temporary contract to see how it would work out. And that was supposed to end in October. And I knew they were going to renew it because it was working out good. So I said, okay, October is a good time to try and push because it'll technically be the end of my contract, even though I know they were going to renew the contract.
Mhm.
So that was the plan. And we were able to make it until then.
Mhm.
It was rough though. It was rough.
No,
It was
I can
rough.
imagine it being difficult because you walk outside your door, you're in Tulum, beautiful beaches,
Right
and
there.
coming from the cold of Canada to that, it
Yeah.
must be difficult focusing and
And having to work from was it 8 to 4 most days?
It was, well, because of the time difference in Tulum, it's a 1 hour time difference, but then time had just changed in Canada and time doesn't change in Tulum. So it ended up being a 2 hour difference. So I was starting work at 6. And so that means by like 1, 2 o'clock, I was done, which was good. So I still had the rest of the day, but most days, because it was so stressful, I was exhausted. I was exhausted. It probably took me until like 6, 7 to like come down from that high, like putting out fires all day. So yeah.
And in Zanya's apartment, she was basically the main go-to person. So it was very stressful in that aspect as well.
Yeah. So like all the locations all over the world, especially in the US, I was their go-to person. So everybody from different angles, different countries was coming to me, which was rough. So, but I made it. It was worth it though. It was worth it. It's a part of the sacrifice,
Yes. So you mentioned, both of you mentioned a particular important point, paying off debt. Because, some people have debt, whether it's consumer debt or in relations to a mortgage that they have with a home. You guys took the position that you wanted to be debt-free before you go on this journey. Now, would you say, in your opinion, is it mandatory or a requirement before you go on full-time travel to be fully debt-free, or can you have a little bit of debt and still go on this journey?
I'd say you could do either because like we know people who started this journey in debt, but they don't have as much freedom. So they know they have to make those payments. So instead of traveling full time, they may, let's say, relocate to Korea, where they could teach English, have their accommodation paid for, and have more disposable income to push to their debt. So usually in that case, they would try to pay their debt off in like their first or second year contract, and then start traveling full time. So it can be done if you have debt, but you wouldn't have as much freedom. So for us, because we saved in the beginning and we didn't have any debt, we didn't have to worry about how we would make money during the beginning of our journey. I don't think we have to worry about like having income until probably I'd say like 6 months in.
Yeah.
Was when we had to say, okay, we still have some savings, but it's getting there. So, now we have to figure out exactly what we'll do going forward. Are we going to teach English online? Are we going to try and find a part-time remote job? Are we going to open up a business? Or are we just going to like push into our YouTube and hope that it'll be monetized? So,
or use the various platforms out there like Workaway, World Pockets, house sitting, and things like that, where you exchange services for free stay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different platforms and avenues that you could apply to that would help mitigate your accommodation fees and your food expenses.
Yeah. Or like if you don't want to teach English in Korea, you could teach English online, and then you have that money coming in. So you could do that and then do that while house sitting. So you don't have to pay rent. And you could just do that in different countries, still be paying off your debt, and you could travel that way. Or you could ask your job to work remotely. With COVID, a lot of us are already working remotely. And then you could try to travel that way. And it will actually save you money because it's usually cheaper to live in a different country than to live like in the US or home in the Bahamas or like in Canada. So you still have your money coming in, but your expenses would be less. So you could put more to get out of debt, and then you'll be able to do it full time without having any restrictions,
And then to add on to the teaching English aspect, there are a lot of different companies that you could apply for that the salary is different. So ABC Kids may be paying, and all of this is in US, by the way.
Yeah.
ABC
US
Kids, US dollars. ABC Kids may be paying $16 per hour, but VIP Kids may be paying $23. So you set your own hours, and you may have 2 or 3 classes with ABC Kids in the morning, and then 2 in the afternoon with VIP Kids. So you can really maximize your hours and your potential.
Yeah. And some people really don't like teaching English,
Yeah.
especially to kids. So they may teach English to adults instead, like with a platform like italki. You'll be talking to people who already know English, but they probably want to get better with their conversational English. And in the event that they have like a job in the UK, they just want their English to be better. So you could talk to like adults, or you could just like we said, there's a lot of options out there. Some people just avoid teaching English because it's not their passion, and they don't feel like they want to do it unless they have to do it. So in that case, you could do like house sitting, where you don't have to pay for accommodations, or just travel to the cheapest countries that's open. So it's a lot of different ways, and you could do it with debt or without debt. But as usual, at least in our case, we wanted to be debt free, because it wasn't like we had student loans or a lot of debt that we felt like we couldn't get out of quickly. If it would take like years to get out of it, then probably we would have said, okay, let's just teach English in Korea and pay it off early, or but because that wasn't the case with us, we know we could pay it off in a few months. We said, okay, let's just get that out of the way. And then it was tempting though, because when that money started coming, you're like, okay, I kind of want to put this in savings. I just want to see it build. But you say, okay, let's just get the debt out of the way so we could start pushing that money to savings.
And I would say having a partner was very paramount in our process, as opposed to if I were to do it on my own, or if Zanya were to do it on her own, it may have taken twice as longer.
Yeah, we could hold each other. We could hold each other accountable too.
Yeah.
But that's encouraging for a lot of people, because I think a lot of people assume that, I have a significant amount of debt, I cannot do this at this point. But like you said, there's so many creative ways in which you can make money in terms of just, whether or not you're working remotely with your current job, or whether or not you're finding new employment through teaching and other ways and cutting costs in other ways. So that's encouraging for a lot of people. And so I know a lot of people are excited about potentially the opportunity, even if they have, these expenses to pay off. And one thing you mentioned, which is the last point you mentioned, working together on that journey. Like
Especially
you
being
said,
a married couple, that is like the most important.
Exactly. Holding each other accountable, because, doing it on your own can be very difficult. But when you have someone say, hey, what you spending that money on this McDonald's or
and just to add in there, it's more difficult, especially when one person isn't really as frugal as the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always a spender and there's also a budget at some point.
Yeah. So in our case, I was the spender, and Zania really had to bring me down and center me financially.
Yeah. But it didn't take long. It didn't take long because I would always show them videos of what our life could be like. You know what I mean? And like realistically, like I'd show them videos of people who would be in the same position as us, not like someone who have a lot of money and travel in the world. I showed him like realistic representation online so he could like visualize it. So a lot of times I'll be like, that's $10, that's like 10 tacos, that's like 10 coconuts. Like, you want to spend it on a $10 burger, or you want 10 tacos or 10 coconuts. So just get creative for sure to stay on target, because the temptation will be real. It will be real.
It really helped to bring things into perspective. And then I was fortunate too to have free lunch meals at my job. So that was one less cost that we had to worry about. Yeah.
But like you said, a lot of people would feel stuck based on their situation. But like I said, for us, I was still working online, so I was still getting the same income. And then if you compare it, I'd say in Canada, if we still had our apartment, we would probably be paying like minimum $1,800 in expenses a month, versus in Mexico, apartment was like $640, and it came with a pool. It was like a luxury style apartment too. It came with a pool and everything. And then like with our phone plans, I'd say, and then our apartment came with all utilities. Okay, I think you were muted.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, go ahead.
So with our apartment and our phone plans, which was essentially our only expenses outside of like food, it was like $700. So if you compare like $1,800 to $700, making the same money, you have a lot more exposable income to say throw on debt, if that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
So thus far, I just want to, for anyone who just joined, I just want to create a picture of what we just talked about so far. So traveling together, you need to be on the same page. You need to.
Yes,
definitely.
Preferably be debt free. If you can't, you need to be smart about how you're going to move forward, with your expenses in terms of living and debt. Also, you want to make sure that at least if you're budget traveling, you need to have some source of revenue, some type of online thing. Well, it has to be online. Well, if you're full-time traveling. So just to create a picture for everyone out there, this is what it can kind of look like. And then lastly, I don't know if you spoke about it, I don't think you did, but choosing countries. Thus far, I've heard you talk about countries that are really cost effective. You didn't mention, for example, Switzerland or Sweden. You said Tulum, Mexico. You said Turkey. You're in Romania. Picking the correct countries for your budget, I imagine, is super important. So kind of talk about that.
Yes, for sure. So like I would say if you have debt, you have to make sure that you, for one, have income coming in the whole time. I would say if you're debt free and you have a savings, then you could say, okay, I don't have to worry about income right now, but I know in the future that's something I'll have to worry about. You have a lot more room if you pay off your debt first. But if you don't, you could use travel as a way to help you pay off your debt earlier if you have the same income or income coming in, by choosing affordable countries, like you said. So like for us, it would be very cute. It'd be very cute to be in Italy and Spain, but we said, okay, it's expensive. Like what we paying in Romania, I want to say our apartment right now is like $720 US.
Yeah.
Whereas Italy for a room, you'll probably have to spend like $1,300 just for like a room, and you may not even have a kitchen to cook and save money. You know what I mean?
I was just going to say, and this is a studio apartment, but we have a washer and dryer, a full-size fridge, and a full-size stove and an oven.
And it's close to the city.
Yeah.
So we told ourselves, okay, based on our financial situation right now, because we want this to be sustainable for us, the only time we'll go to expensive countries is like if we have a house sitting arrangement, because if we don't have to pay rent, then we just have to worry about food and transportation. So you do have to be realistic with how much money you have, because trust me, you don't go broke out there. Yeah, because you probably like 20 hours away from home. You know what I mean? And it'll cost money to get home. So you don't want nobody home having no cookout to get you home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you have to be smart. Say we pay like $45 a month each. So like $90 a month, which sounds like a lot, but at the end of the day, things happen. Like if we were in Southeast Asia and we'd be riding scooters and motorbikes, like there's a possibility that an accident could happen, or God forbid, we could die. So you want insurance to get you home. Like if something bad happens, for one, you don't have to worry about how you'll pay the bill in the hospital to save your life. Or number two, let's say God forbid you did pass away in another country, you don't want your family to have to worry about how to get your body home. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to think that way, but you have to think that way when you in different countries, for one, and when you're so far from home.
Okay. So let's talk about that travel insurance. Can you maybe recommend specific countries that you feel are reputable, or people can look up those stuff if they're really considering this lifestyle?
You mean with the travel insurance? It's an online platform. Yeah.
There are different online ones that you can apply for. The one we use is called Safety Wing.
Yeah.
And I think they were one of the first ones to include COVID coverage.
Yeah, that's why we went with them.
Yeah.
Because the most popular one is World Nomads. Like it's very easy to sign up. You just put in the country you're from. And then for World Nomad, you could pay by month, or you could say, okay, I'm traveling for a year. But with Safety Wing, we do it monthly, and we'll put like the locations we anticipate to be in for those months. So it's pretty simple. Like you don't have to send any documents. You just sign in online. You make an account, you put in the information, and you pay. And we did the research and check reviews to see if anybody had any issues when they had to put in a claim, or people who got stuck during COVID. The travel insurance paid for them to get home, no matter where they were.
And as soon as you pay with Safety Wing, within a few minutes you get your client ID card and number, and it goes into effect right away. There's no waiting period, so that's really good too.
Yeah, no, that's important to have when you're traveling, to have that insurance.
Yeah.
But talk to us about, you mentioned certain things, unexpected things happening during travel. Now, when you're situated somewhere, it's very easy to budget, and it's very easy to say, okay, these are my expenses for the month. I know this is what I have to pay. But when you're traveling, so many unexpected things happen.
The day-to-day stuff.
Exactly.
Also, in addition to that, so how do you budget for day-to-day unexpected stuff?
I'd say you'd have to put aside extra fee for, like you said, the unexpected. So whether that be $300 to $500 in case anything were to happen, or an extra $1,000 set aside from your entertainment, the rent, or whatever you have, it would be an extra peace of mind to know that you have that in the event that anything were to happen. So I just say, just plan and set aside something extra.
Yeah, so like we know we don't necessarily have to worry about medical issues. And even if you don't look at the extreme, like it could be something simple and you have to go to the doctor, you know what I mean? Or you may have something lingering that you don't want to keep putting off and you want to get it checked out. So it's a lot easier knowing that you don't have to be afraid if something happen or like put it off, like your finger about to drop off, and you're like, listen, I can't afford to go to the hospital. Like not having to worry about that is huge, especially because in some countries it'll be very expensive to get anything done, you know? So, but yeah, like Darian said, putting aside some money just in case, and you could decide what that looks like for you. You know what I mean? Whether it be that extra just in case money could be, okay, we want it to be a certain amount. So if we have to go home for an emergency, we'll have that money put aside. Because like we said, things happen. You may have family members pass away and you want to get home. Or like we were saying, a lot of these countries were starting to close down. So we had to fly all the way back to Mexico, which costs a lot more than if we were traveling the area. So when we were in Turkey, instead of paying $20, $40 to take a ticket, to take a flight to one of these countries, we had to spend like $800 each to get to Mexico. So stuff like that, like you say, you can't really plan for. And when you talk about day-to-day things, like we heard about people who visit Switzerland and apparently they fine you for everything. Like they have a very intense like recycling system. And if you accidentally throw something in the wrong trash bin, you don't even realize until they hit you with that ticket. You know what I mean? That may be 300 euros, which is how much in US dollar, in Bahamian dollars, probably like 350, I'd say. So it's stuff like that where you could just be minding your business and just not know, and you get hit with a fine, you know?
I see we have a question here from Misty Bain. When you're traveling, how do you deal with banking fees and exchange rates?
Before we left Canada, we researched different travel cards that will be the best for us, and we ended up going with a card from TD, where once you have, I'd say a minimum.
I think it's like $1,500 a minimum on the account. They wouldn't charge you FX fees. So like Scotiabank, for example, they would charge you 3% of everything you take off from the ATM. And then on top of that, some ATMs will charge you a separate fee. So the Scotia in Canada isn't like the Scotia home where they have fees for every single transaction. Like in Canada, it's like, okay, you could take money off from the ATM, but if it's in a different currency, we'll charge you 3%. But when we travel, we find ATMs. So like here, for example, we had to go to a few ATMs to figure out which ones have the best rates. So some may try to charge you like $30, $40 to take off probably like $200. And some wouldn't charge you anything. Some would say, okay, they have like a sign, like a notice that comes on before you continue, and it'll say, this machine only charges with your bank charges. So that's essentially saying they wouldn't charge you anything extra. And in Mexico, we asked around and we tried on our own to figure out, okay, which banks charge the best fees. And you can always Google it too. Like if you go, that's what we did on the first day. We Googled which ATMs are the best in Romania. And once you type that in, they know you mean like in terms of how much fees they charge in.
And right before you withdraw the money, there's always a conversion page that pops up and lets you know how much you will be charged in your banks, in your currency. So I always look at that, and if it's too much, I cancel it right away.
And find a different
ATM.
Yeah. But we know it's different for home, because home, Scotiabank will be charging you to withdraw money from your account, period. So it's different, you know. But we were able to get a Bank of America account, even though we didn't have social
insurance numbers.
Yeah, so we could always use our Bank of America card if we feel like that's best, because they don't charge fees either.
That was getting the Bank of America card was one of our major goals while we were in Florida before we left, because we have multiple cards, but they're all Canadian cards, and from time to time you may not be able to access the money that
Sometimes
you have on your
you
might not be able to access the money that you have on your card, because we've been home a few times and we weren't able to access money. And even in Florida, as simple as checking out in the dollar store, There's money on the card, but the card
It
didn't work
wouldn't
for
work.
some reason.
Yeah, it would
You
only
know what
work
I
at the
mean?
ATM. Yeah.
So it's good to have a backup, and getting the card has really been great so far.
Yeah, so I'd say for Bahamians who want to live this lifestyle, try to get a Bank of America card because they're not going to charge you the fees like what Scotia Home would be charging you. Like I feel like Scotia Home, every time you withdraw money, they're going to charge you on top of probably a FX fee, on top of what the ATM the other country is charging you. Whereas if you get a Bank of America card, they're not going to charge you anything. And all you have to worry about is the ATM fees. And you can get creative and find ATMs either with the lowest fees or with no fees to withdraw.
And then with withdrawing, I'd say each time you withdraw, I would withdraw a substantial amount.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't have a bunch of constant fees charging if each one is like $5, $6 or $7 because it adds up.
Yeah, substantial, but like
Nothing crazy.
nothing crazy because like safety wise.
Yeah, you don't want to have too much cash on you. You know what I mean?
But if you know, like let's say for the next 2 weeks for pocket money,
Mhm.
you need X amount of dollars.
Or you already know the itinerary or things you have planned to do, whether it be a tour or going to a beach club or whatever, you know, basically what you would need.
If you need cash, because you could do a lot of things online, like the tours you could pay for online.
Mhm.
When you go to these places, a lot of times you could use your card to pay. So the cash will be like just in case your card doesn't work, you don't want to be shamed to eat at the people restaurant and your card ain't working. They ain't trying to head on.
Yeah, and then
You could just wash some dishes afterwards.
we've noticed too. What was interesting here while we're in Romania is that some of the restaurants that we went to, when we paid with card, they didn't have a tipping option on the card machine. So that's another good instance where you would want to have cash as well.
Yeah. So far in Romania, the only time we've needed cash was to tip.
Yeah.
When we take the bus, we could pay with a card. We could pay with a card to take the metro.
Mhm.
If we eat out, if we go to the grocery store, we could always pay with our card. But the only time we've needed cash is to tip. Because man, I was so ashamed one time when we didn't have cash to tip the guy. And I was like, okay, we'll come back tomorrow because it wasn't an ATM in the area. I was like, we coming back tomorrow to tip you because
And the service was so good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then on that note too, each place that we go, we always look at the tipping culture
Yeah.
because some places it isn't really accepted.
Yeah.
And it's frowned
It's
upon.
like a insult to
Mhm.
tip in some countries. Yeah.
Where did you experience that?
We didn't experience it personally, but I think it's Japan.
Japan.
Japan is
Mhm.
it's like an insult to tip. And but in other countries, like for example, the usual maybe like 5%.
Mhm.
Some countries it'll be like 10, 15% if they're used to having like US tourists.
Mhm.
But yeah, or some they'll say just round up. Like if your bill is 10.50, round up to 11. If you try tip like 10% or 15%, they may look at you kind of crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I know when you're out to dinner or whatever and you're having a good time, you're not really cognizant of what's on the bill. But I'd say scan the bill and make sure
Everything add up.
everything adds up because some people they add on extra meals or they add on additional fees and you just swipe the card and you didn't notice. It happened to me once or twice while we were in Mexico.
In Tulum, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, in summary, one, investigate, go on Google and see which ATMs, which banks have the best rates. And then secondly, everybody go get your Bank of America card because these people
Yes.
want to take your money. Basically, that's what I'm hearing from the conversation.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to ask, in terms of budgeting, whether short-term or long-term budgeting, are you the type of travelers that say, okay, this month we have X amount for food, X amount of entertainment, X amount for inter-country travel? Like how, in terms of your budget categories on your spreadsheet, on your notebook, however you budget, what are your common categories?
You could tell them about my Excel sheet.
Knew you had an Excel sheet. I know the accountant does.
That was my Excel sheet. I ain't shame.
I
So we have accommodation, entertainment, coffee, food,
Jim.
gym, if we were in a country for a month and we decide to get a month membership, we have the gym, we have miscellaneous
And transportation. I
and
think.
transportation.
Yeah. So how we would work around that is, so I have the Excel sheet, right? And what you could do on YouTube is you could look up cost of living in X. So if you go into Tulum, you could look up cost of living in Tulum and try to find someone who have the same lifestyle as you. Like if you don't do the most, then try to find somebody who just telling you, you know, like what you need in terms of transportation, groceries, not a lot of extra, you know? So for us, what we'll do is we'll look up cost of living in Romania and we'll see the rough, like the range in which people would spend on like rent, food for the month, eating out for the month. So we have an idea of what we probably could spend, you know, and then we track it. So in my Excel sheet, in our Excel sheet, we started off with Darian just putting it in his notes in the phone, which you could see everything, but you can't really track totals. So I made an Excel sheet and we would update it. I'd say like every day or every other day we'd update it, and then it'll show us our totals, you know. So it'll show us with eating out, like we was ordering out because we weren't really leaving the apartment often. So when we see that ordering out category getting a little high, we know, okay, we can't order no more, you know, we can't eat out no more. But we have coffee as a separate section because that's mainly for like cafes. If we needed to go to cafe to work, then we wanted to put that separate, as opposed to like, it's not like just going out to get coffee because we make coffee at home.
Yeah, you need the internet.
So, yeah, sometimes, or you just need a change of scenery too. Like sometimes when you're working in the same space for too long, you need somewhere else to like
help with your creative
get
flow.
the juices flowing, especially like with creative work and help even like with work that's not creative, you want to stay focused. But I've seen a lot of travelers budget for a co-working space. So that they'll pay for the whole month to work at a particular like office, a shared space with other expats. And that's what keeps, so they would budget for that, you know, that's what keeps them focused, they know, by investing in that. And it's usually like 100, 150 a month. By investing in that, they could keep up with their work, you know. But I would say, like, for example, if we know, when we were out in the mountains, we didn't have to pay for accommodation because we were doing a work away. So because we didn't have to pay for accommodation, we had more room to say, okay, we probably could eat out a little more if we wanted to, or we probably could do a more expensive tour or excursion if we wanted to. So that's kind of like how we do it. We kind of aim for a certain amount per month based on the video we watch, because it's easy to say, okay, I want a $500 budget every month, but you may end up in a country where it's not realistic, or you may not have as much countries available to you that you could get to affordably where you could keep up with that budget, you know what I mean? Or some countries where the ticket may be more expensive, but you'll end up spending probably half in expenses overall. So you kind of have to do the maths for real. You have to do the maths sometimes.
It's a give and take. And then when eating out, you can lower your cost by sharing a meal, opposed to getting two separate main dishes.
If you gotta eat a sandwich before you go out, so you could share a meal and still be full, that's what you have to do. And it's just certain things, like even if you want to eat out often, say, okay, we'll eat breakfast at home. You know, we'll eat breakfast at home.
Hungry, and I'm spending more money on like appetizers, 2 separate entrees, and then 1 or 2 alcoholic drinks, because those add up quick as well.
Yeah, like here, for example, a bear is the cost of like a lemonade, and it's like the same price of water. So like bear here is really cheap. So Darian would
bear
know.
actually cheaper than lemonade.
Yeah, bear cheaper than like non-alcoholic drinks. Yeah. So I'd be like, oh, I don't want to buy no alcoholic drinks because alcoholic drinks more expensive. Whole time my lemonade way more expensive than if I was to get a bear, you know? So it's like stuff like that. You kind of have to, and we didn't even notice it at first because in our mind,
so
it's
accustomed
like
to bear being more.
Alcoholic drinks are more. But when you really sit down and you look at the bill, like Darian say, like take a point to like look at the bill and notice, you know, like how things going financially, you'll be like, okay, bear affordable over here. So if you're gonna order a drink, it'll be a bear, or we'll bring our water.
And
So
I've always been one to review the bill at a restaurant or whatever.
That's smart. I mean, actually, you should be doing that even if you're not traveling. If you're,
Yeah.
for those in the Bahamas,
Exactly.
go out, you need to check that.
Exactly.
Don't,
Uh-huh.
and it could be an accident. Not even trying to say people tried to scam you, but it could be an honest accident. That's probably happened to everyone. So, those little expenses add up. So
yeah.
Yeah. So talk to us about I guess, the digital nomad community and the importance of being part of that community. And I see somebody asked, I believe this is Misty Bain as well. Have you guys made any friends along your journey? And I guess if you're part of that community, I'm sure you have. So talk to us a little bit about that, the importance of being part of that community as you travel and as you're on this journey.
It can be very beneficial in terms of finding out what's going on in a particular city or country. The different nomad and expat groups on Facebook and on WhatsApp. When you get into the country, you'll be added to the group, and you can find out different meetups that's going to happen, different events, parties, and I'm more of an extrovert, and Zanya is a introvert. So when it comes to Zanya's sociable, but she gets strained sometimes. So meeting people has been very beneficial to find out what's going on, and just if you are tired of working at home alone and you just want to interact and share your experiences and your ideas and what you have planned for your travels next, because you may find out something that you didn't know before, and it'll really help in your planning process in terms of what you may need as it relates to visas on arrival or filling out certain forms ahead of time, because that's another thing too that you have to look out for, especially traveling now, because you may have somewhere where it says that you can apply when you get there, but when you get there, you would have needed to already fill it out because there's a long queue, and you just need to have certain things done ahead of time. Sorry?
Sound like personal experience, y'all. Smiling.
No, we saw this lady when we were coming here. When we were leaving New York to get to Spain, she speaks Spanish, but the flight attendants, they don't speak Spanish.
There was no one up there that was fluent in Spanish to assist her, really.
And she didn't fill out the form that she needed. So I don't even know if she got on the plane.
She didn't. And what had happened was her bag was already on the plane, and everybody was on the plane except for me, Zanya, and this lady. So they weren't able to assist her. They had to take her luggage off of the plane, and she wasn't able to make it on the flight.
Because you need the form, and they couldn't help her because nobody could speak Spanish. And then by this time, the plane already late, you know what I mean? So they couldn't spend the time to like translate everything for her. So she was left with, to piggyback on what Darian said about the expat groups on Facebook, sometimes they help you when it's super important, because like you'd be in an Airbnb, and like, especially when you're in an Airbnb for a month, like the host, unless something is wrong and you reach out to them, like you're already out of their mind. So like in Tulum, when the hurricane was coming, we didn't know. We didn't know the hurricane was coming. We didn't know the hurricane was coming, but because we were in that expat group and everybody was talking about it and frantic, we look at our landlord and we're like, Paco, a hurricane coming? He's like, yeah. He's like, he in his flip-flop chilling. He said, yeah, it's supposed to come 12 o'clock today. Mine was like 10 o'clock. We haven't been to the food store, nothing. So stuff like that is like.
And then too, being in a different expat groups, it helps with resources where they may put you in contact with Airbnb hosts one-on-one, as opposed to applying to the Airbnb platform, where you can build a relationship with them and potentially get a reduced rate.
Yeah, that's what we did in Tulum. Like we were able to get a reduced rate because we met 2 other travelers who were staying there. So we were able to talk to him one-on-one and get a monthly rate, as opposed to going through Airbnb, where we probably would have paid like double or more. So
and we were able to stay at that one fixed rate all throughout, even in the high season, because we left and we came back, but while we were gone, we still stayed in contact with him, not to gain anything, but just because
We
that's the
built a
kind of relationship we had with him.
because he lived on the property with us.
When we told him we were coming back, he was able to offer us the same fixed rate, even though it was in the higher season now,
Yeah.
and he was charging a lot more.
So that worked out for us. And even with just doing YouTube or Instagram, you meet other travelers online and then you end up meeting them in person. So it was two YouTubers who came up to us in Tulum and we talked for like hours in a coffee shop. And now we talk every day. They're a young married couple too, and they just started their travel journey. They're from the States, and now like we have a WhatsApp group and we talk to them every day. Or like with the expat group in Turkey, we found out how easy it was to get residency because it's something that you can only do if you're already in Turkey. We had no idea. If you Google it, it will tell you how hard it is if you're outside of Turkey. Like you have to buy a house or start a business or invest $100,000 in the economy, as opposed to if you're already there, you wouldn't have known that you could have applied easily unless you were in the expat group. So we always advise people who travel in this lifestyle to find the expat group on Facebook. Even if you don't use Facebook, use it specifically for that. Just type up expats in Istanbul, expats in Turkey, expats in Romania.
So you'll have a general idea of how things operate in the country once you touch down. Even though they may change, you still have a general idea of what's going on and the different scams to be aware of, because that's very important too.
And you're someone to ask too. You're like, hey, I need to go to a dentist. Who's the best dentist to go to? And they'll tell you, or like we told y'all when we were talking to y'all the first time, like people end up getting pregnant on this journey and they're like, has anybody had a baby in Tulum? Let me know what the process was. So it's like, it's a really good resource. And like Darian said, it could help you save a lot of money because it could put you in contact with some really good hosts or landlords to bring your expenses down. Or like you'll find out they have their own car sharing group on WhatsApp. So if you go into to the beach in Tulum, instead of paying for the taxi that's expensive,
or even if you go into a different part of Mexico, like Playa,
you could share a ride with somebody in the expat group and split your cost in half. So definitely, even me as an introvert, I would say it's good to like still branch out a little bit. I feel like in Tulum it was hard for me because I was working so much. It was harder for me to like socialize with people in our apartment complex because there was a lot of travelers there. But like Darian would meet them, and then once I was off on the weekends, he would already know them, and I would I would meet them on the weekends, and we'd probably go to get something to eat or chill by the pool. So yeah, but even if just for information and resources, the expat groups on Facebook, you could ask them questions, or you could find out if the country going under lockdown, because you don't know these things. You know what I mean? Like like in Turkey, we wouldn't be watching the Turkish news because we don't understand what they're saying, as opposed to in they'll be like, hey, the government said that these are the new restrictions starting this weekend. So, or the borders may be closing for all you know what I mean?
And then sometimes on these different platforms, the information that they present can be very vague. So with the expat groups, they're able to put things into perspective and say, well, hey, there is a lockdown, but it doesn't apply to tourists, it's only for locals.
Yeah, because we knew a lot of people who, when Turkey was going on the lockdown, they left because they didn't know that it was just for locals and it wasn't for tourists. Like everything that has to deal with tourism was still open for us. So they left not knowing that, and then they regretted leaving. So it's important stuff like that you wouldn't know about unless you join these expat groups.
And then too, with certain groups on WhatsApp, you're able to market your business if you have any business. If you're a yoga instructor or personal trainer or private chef or even
accounting, you could help them with their small business accounting needs. And that's another way too. So,
or even if you have anything to sell, like a motorcycle, especially in Tulum.
In Tulum, they had like
scooters,
a secondhand WhatsApp group. So because people would move there, buy all this furniture, and find out that they move into another part of Mexico. So you have furniture, or they selling their scooter, or they selling their car, or like appliances or a blender. So
That's really
very helpful.
Like in this travel, people tend to think like it, like, you don't have a community. You feel like someone's like, I guess you can be alone. In reality, you don't have to be alone. Even if you're a solo
Oh.
traveler, you can still have a community, still have an extended family while doing this, as your full-time thing. So that's really,
Sure.
because I had an idea, yes, it's existed, but to hear it in detail from you guys, how it's the bee's knees, like you need it, and it can really save you money, and you can make great connections. It's really like the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Like that. That's what I see.
And
And then-
we would have
Go
like
ahead.
travelers talk about it often in all their videos. Like they didn't meet like their lifelong friends until they started traveling. And I'm like, all right, yeah, whatever. Because like I find it so hard to meet friends, especially like with the same mindset, you know what I mean? Or at least similar mindset as me, where we could, be on a deeper level and have those conversations together. But when we started traveling for real, even as an introvert who wasn't like necessarily out there trying to make friends with everybody, it just happens so naturally, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then you make those lifelong friendships, like you still messaging the people who you met in Tulum, or someone came up to you in a cafe in Playa del Carmen, because that's what happens. It's like a Black community in Playa. Like if they see you in a cafe by yourself, they'd be like, hey, you alone? We have this Black community and we meet up here and there, or, so you make really good friend,
You build long lasting you build long lasting relationships.
for sure. And it worked out for us too, because I met a YouTuber. She's a full-time traveler. She's traveling for the past 4 years full-time. I started like commenting on her stories on Instagram, and we started talking every day. And when she did a video of like her top 5 travel YouTubers in the Black community, because she wanted to put more Black content creators out there,
Mhm.
she mentioned our video, and like our subscribers went up tremendously since
Mhm.
then. So it's like just stuff you wouldn't expect, like ways that meeting up with other people and being open to, putting yourself out there a little more would work out to benefit you in the end.
Yeah, and the relationships are honestly genuine. You know what I
Genuine,
mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
genuine.
Yeah, because you have that connection, you have that, that's almost that same mindset as well,
Mhm.
And, so that is amazing. I'm very conscious of the time, and so
Yes.
I think we may have to do a part 2
Absolutely.
on this, because
Yeah.
but
But before we go, I think we do have one last question.
yes.
For all of those people out there who don't know where to start, but they're interested, even if they don't want to travel full time, they still want to maximize, their vacation time, because we have to understand not everyone wants to be a full-time traveler, and that's completely fine.
That's completely fine.
Exactly.
Mhm.
But for those who want to do full-time travel, or just, pick up the pace with traveling, what 3 to 5 like practical tips could you give them to prepare for that?
I'd say the main one is your mindset, and then research. You have to do your research, because a place that you may think is so expensive or so far-fetched, you can get to and have the best time of your life, and it'll be cheaper than going to not it'll be cheaper than going to Orlando or Miami, where you
Used to go in, yeah.
where you used to go and where you spend $250 to $300 on a ticket. You spend $800 to $1,000 on the hotel. Then you still have to rent a car, which is another few $100s. You know what I mean? And by the end of it, you spend $5,000-$6,000 just to say you went to Orlando, where you could have had a brand new experience in Europe or Asia or Africa,
America, where?
South America,
Exactly.
wherever,
In there.
and still have a great time.
Yeah. I'd say another tip would be, even if you're not a nomad, it would be good to type in, like, for example, nomad cost of living in a particular country, because nomads would take the time to make blog posts, and they'll put how much coffee would cost, how much an average meal would cost, how much to expect for transportation. Like the usual travelers don't think in this way, because usually when you're on vacation, you don't think about money as much. Like, you know how much money you have, and you don't mind spending all of your vacation money on vacation, as opposed to expats try to find ways to save money. So they'll say, okay, instead of staying on the beach, stay more in town and pay a third of, a third of what you would pay for the same experience, or instead of taking this form of transportation, this form of transportation exists. I feel the main reason we spend a lot of money when traveling is because we don't know about all the resources out there. Like some people still don't know about Airbnb, so they feel like if you travel, the only way you could travel is if you stay in a hotel, you know what I mean? Whereas the hotel may be $110 a night, but an Airbnb that gives more and probably have somewhere where you could cook, you know what I mean? So you could save even more money, or have somewhere where you could do your laundry, would probably be like $30 a night, $25 a night. But you wouldn't know if you only looking at like resources by people who only go on vacation. So if you, even if you aren't a full-time traveler, still look at like what full-time travelers putting out there, because they would know ways you could really save your money. And that may be the deciding factor if you could afford to go to Italy or not. You know what I mean? Like you may say, okay, I can't afford to go because hotels are $200, when really you may be able to get a very nice apartment for probably half or a third that a night. Or same with Tulum, like the hotels in Tulum are like $500, $600 a night on the beach. Or you could get like a luxury condo in town for like $35 a night. You see the difference? So people would be like, I only could go to Tulum for the weekend because I can't afford it. And then when they find out, they're like, wow, I could have stayed longer. You know what I mean? Like they have the vacation time, but they think it's expensive. So they don't look for other ways to make it happen for their budget. You know what I mean? So I'd say that's a really good tip too.
Yeah.
But like what Darren said with mindset, just knowing that it's attainable. Like don't tell yourself you can't afford it, it's too expensive. Look first. You know what I mean? Look first. It may be a lot more affordable than you think.
Be open. Be open to something different, or trying something different.
Yeah.
Instead of renting a VIP service ride from the airport into town, spending $200, you could take an hour bus where you spend $11. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that opens your budget to spend more money on whatever you find. If you find a unique piece of clothing or something that you want to take back home, then you have the money to do that.
Or that's more money for food or drinks. Or you could go, you could
for an
not go home
experience.
broke. You could take some of your vacation money home with you. You know what I mean? And then like, too, like the average person may say, man, I don't want to catch no bus from the airport, because they're thinking of the buses home, as opposed to these buses like
A nice bus.
first class, air conditioned. They have, you could watch movies on the bus. It's
Bathroom
like,
on the bus if you need to use the bathroom.
and just by looking it up, you'll come across videos that showing you what you actually getting yourself into, and you'll be like, man, that little bus ain't kill me. You know what I mean? Like, let me save that $90 to get from the airport, and that could buy me more food, or I'll have that when I come back home. That could pay my light.
Because the private ride that you're paying for takes the same amount of time. So you could pay a third of that.
Yeah.
And still get to where you're going.
Comfortably. That's
Comfortably and safe. Yeah.
So I'd say those are our top tips for sure. Mindset, doing the research to know what resources are out there for sure. And being open instead of telling yourself you can't afford it, like being open to different places, so you have those on your radar to now look up and see if you could afford it.
And then if you're traveling with a partner or a group of friends, be on the same page.
Yeah.
Because other group of 5, everybody budget isn't the same, and some people want to live their life like it's their birthday every day, the trip. Meanwhile, others want to be more frugal. They could do 1 or 2 things, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
just be on the same page.
Sorry, and for people who only traveling with vacation time, find ways to maximize the vacation time. So if you have from Monday to Friday off, you have the weekend before that week, you have the weekend after that week, and let's say it's a holiday. So probably you may have 5 days. Let's say you want to take 5 days. If you take advantage of a Friday holiday that weekend, a Monday holiday, because we have some holidays where it's on a Friday and a Monday. So if you have that Friday holiday, the weekend, which is another 2 days, then that Monday holiday, and you take from Tuesday to Friday off, and you still have the weekend after that, You know what I mean? Like it's ways you could maximize. That's what we did before we left home. Like I didn't have much vacation days, so I'd wait for the holidays, even if it's just one holiday that add an extra day. So with a holiday, 2 weekends, that's already an extra 5 days onto your vacation that you didn't have to apply for.
And then 2, you could always switch if you work a shift job, you could always switch shifts with a friend. If you leave Friday and they're off on Thursday, you can switch that shift, be off on a Thursday and work for them when you come back. So that adds an extra day as well.
Yeah, so getting creative with your vacation time and knowing what is realistic to do on your vacation. Like if you, like let's say you go to Italy, knowing that you can't try to do everything in 5 days or you'll be tired when you get back. And you know when you get back, you have to go back to work. Like you can't take 3 days off to sleep. So you may not be able to go inside everywhere, but maybe you could go. That's what we did in Italy. We went to the Colosseum and all those places, but to save time, we didn't go inside because we knew we'd have to wait in the line for an hour to 2 hours each time. So we still were able to see everything from the outside, and we say, okay, on the trip back, we'll explore more, or we'll save this one for the next time. You know what I mean?
No, those are some really good points. And listen, man, we have so many more questions we want to ask you.
Part 2 coming.
We have a limited amount of time, and so we would love for you guys to come back on for a part 2, so to talk a little bit more. But for those who are want to follow your journey, how can they follow you? Give your Facebook, Instagram pages, Twitter, all the platforms that they let them know how they can follow you and follow your journey.
On YouTube, you can find us at Nomadic Islanders. I think you could. There's a space you could find. You can find us with the space in between now too. Yeah. Before there couldn't be a space in between Nomadic and Islanders, but now
we're a little bigger, so we're
getting there. So we're more searchable now with or without the space. So on YouTube, it's Nomadic Islanders, NOMADIC ISLANDERS. On Instagram, we're the Nomadic Islanders, and Zanya's page on Instagram is the Mayfleur.
Yeah, so the May FLEUR, and Darian on his Island Boy.
Yeah, I think it's two underscores.
Couple underscores in that, child. So find my page.
Yeah,
and you'll see one of his pictures, and he'll be tagged, so you can find his page.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why you can find us everywhere. And we try to upload videos every 2 to 3 times a week. Yeah. So
thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
Yeah, the pleasure was like we're just so happy to have you guys, because again, you're unicorns, meaning there's just not that many of people doing this who are Black, who are young, and who are Bahamian. So you guys are an inspiration. Thank you so much for your tips. Can't wait to have you back.
Yes.
Can't wait to be back.
Yeah, and so for everyone out there, thank you so much for joining. This video will be up on our page. You can rewatch it if you didn't catch everything. Make sure to like, to share the video. Make sure like and David for all new and exciting content coming. Nomadic Islanders will be back on. So
and follow them as well. Follow Nomadic Islanders. Follow their journey as well, because they have some really amazing videos. We enjoy them and we watch them as well. So follow them as well, and share them and subscribe and everything as well.
And we have some family members on here too on Zoom, so you could tell them where they could find y'all, so they could follow y'all too.
Oh yeah, so you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at ANN space David DAVID Limited Ltd, and David Limited on Facebook and Instagram. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you guys. So thank you so much for joining, and happy Sunday, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Bye.